Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hey, Gabriel,
Hello.
how are you, man?
I'm doing okay. I was worried for a second when you said that I have some internet problems, but I'm here now. So the internet embraced me. The God of internet said, "You are in," so I'm in. Yeah,
We are live. People are
we are live.
watching.
Even better. Even better.
You see, we call this in Tunisia. These are the real conditions, or the real how it. This is how life really is. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes things go wrong. It's totally normal.
I would say that we move past that. Can you hear me? Can you not?
No, we are
Are you
live. I
me?
can hear.
Yeah. Yes.
We're on stage actually. It's
No, that's
it's
fantastic.
yeah. It's very nice having you. To be honest, let me tell you. Let me give you a little background. See, in today is a big celebration for the believers in God. So tomorrow is the day where we slaughter the sheep. Okay, so today is almost day off. I mean, this entire week is almost a week off in
Oh, I see.
most of the regions where people celebrate this feast of slaughtering the sheep. So that's why I don't mind if not so many people will show up today. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. Anyway, a lot of people will find this session recorded. It's going to be a very important session, guys, because as announced already in the program 2 weeks ago, session two is about going in details in PMBOK 8. Why did we choose, Gabriel and I, that this session two will be about going in details in PMBOK 8? Because Gabriel, you know it. Whenever there is a new PMBOK edition, and even if the PMBOK edition already is here for a few years, in our PMP training, and you have this, I think, also in your training, people wonder or people ask, should I read the PMBOK? Should I go, how should I read the PMBOK? What should I focus on in the PMBOK? So these are the kind of questions people ask. And we wanted to have this session as one of the first sessions now about PMBOK 8, where we go deep into the PMBOK. We show you how, if you want to skim through it, guys, how you can go through it, what you can read, what to focus on. And let me tell you this. And here I would like also to hear your opinion, Gabriel. Let me tell you this,
Okay.
guys. I always tell my students, you don't have to read the PMBOK if you don't have time. Why? Because in our training presentation, we've read the PMBOK, we've read other books, the Agile Guide, the Business Analysis Guide, the Project Management Office Guide or Standard, the same for Program Management, the same for Portfolio Management. We've read all of those PMI official publications, okay, whether it's guides or standards. And it's okay because you definitely, when you join a training from, let's say, a reputable school for project management training or for PMP training, the instructors or the trainers or the experts, they will make effort, to go through those standards and guides because they want to make sure that you really get the full picture from PMI, since everything is connected now with PMI, especially as we said last week. Now PMI focuses on this entire system for value delivery, where it wants you to think inside an entire system, not as isolated project. So that's why it's so important to understand the program management standard, the portfolio management standard, etc. So you don't have to read the PMBOK if you don't have time. Our training presentation contain everything, but if you insist, this is the session. What's your take on this, Gabriel?
Um, I think that's a very good point with this, Ahmed, because so we are practitioners on a way that we teach and live what we preach in that sense. So for us, it's essential to make sure that you have a good level of understanding of
Yeah,
PMBOK or any kind of standards out there, because you're trying to be, let's say, the most credible source out there with the information. so the professor of the PMP in that sense. So I think for us is very much of a normal. Now, in case of, let's say you're a student and planning for the PMP, you need to see that many people have the interpretation, the PMBOK guide or guides or all the standards sounds very dry or it's very hard to follow. And I think people have to kind of be reminded that technically any kind of PMI material standards might sound like Historica Britannica 1 to 15, but that's normal because that's a standard. So that's how it's supposed to be. That's the lexicon of how to run and execute projects on the best practice manner. So that's why it's not, let's say, a Twilight book series, which can be very vivid whatsoever. But I think that's why it is representing that level of standard. Now, in case you are preparing for the PMP, that's where many experts like yourself or like myself, we have our own interpretation or explanation of the same thing, but maybe we're explaining it slightly differently. But regardless, the way we're looking at it, you have to make sure you have a good understanding of the standards. You have to good understanding of the domains, how they're working in general. So I would say that if you are a student for the PMP and also you're considering that you would like to apply this real life, you need to dedicate some time to make sure that you are understanding those standards, even though, for example, a program which Ahmed put together can really help you to can help you to understand it on a much easier way, not compromising the quality. So I think that's the best way of looking at it altogether.
Exactly. Thanks, Gabriel. By the way, guys, I'm sharing my screen. I don't know, Gabriel, is it still the same problem like last time? Am I frozen again?
You are still okay, but I can't see the screen at the moment. It's just a little bit having this little rolling icon.
I think it is. I think the screen is already on because I can see it already live on.
I can see it now. I can see it now.
Yeah.
I can see it.
So I hope the problem is solved now with this. Okay. So guys, for those of you who wonder what's the PMBOK about, what is the content of PMBOK? See, we wanted to have session 2 dedicated for PMBOK 8, the new edition, to go with you through this 400 page document. Of course, we will not go page by page. We will go in bulks, in sections. Sorry. So this is the 8th edition. It was released November 2025, and we talked last time briefly about the other editions. Like edition 7 was released in 2021, edition 6 2017, edition 5 2013. Now we also talked about this, that edition 8 now somehow took back the old forms from PMBOK 6, 5, 4, etc., but let's say in a new dress, in a more modern dress, based on feedback from thousands of people. Okay, so this PMBOK guide now, and please, Gabriel, feel free to interrupt me at any moment if you want to say something. Really, just immediately jump into the talking and interrupt me, because I cannot see you. I can only see the PMBOK. So if you want to say something, just say it, and I will let you have the word. Okay. So everyone,
I definitely will do that, because just to let you know, I see you, but I not see the screen. So let's do this then.
You don't see my screen?
It's just coming up, after. So now I see it, but I think previously it wasn't really on. But now, at least now it's on. But I will jump in, Ahmed. Don't worry.
Because you know what? I'm also checking on my mobile, and the sharing is fine. People can see my screen and can see me and can see you. Everything fine.
In that case, nothing to worry about.
So what I'm doing is I'm just bringing up the PMBOK. I just opened PMBOK 8th edition, and I will go through it. I hope you will see it soon. Okay. I hope, or you can follow from your mobile if you want. You can have the mobile also to check what I'm sharing. Okay. So everyone, so this is the project managed body of knowledge. This is the guide, which also includes the standard part, which is the shorter part, because usually the PMBOK contains 2 parts, and this has been the case since already many editions. The standard part is a shorter version, You just want to put your phone on mute, Gaber, because I can hear myself talking. And the guide, this is the longer part. The standard, this is approved by the ANSI, the American National Standards Institute. Okay, so it's like, what PMI presents as a standard for project management that could be applied on different types of, it's a standard for project management. But the guide, let's say a guide is more descriptive, is more informative, is more detailed. It contains, that's the bigger part of the book, and it contains details about the different performance domains, different focus areas, different tools, techniques, inputs, outputs. It contains the appendices, etc. So just for you to know, okay. Now, if we jump, guys, to okay, so here, of course, we'll have a preface, and again, we're going through this for those who want to know if they should read the PMBOK, yes or no. If you have time, do it. It takes 2 days to read it. 3.5 hours or 4 hours a day. So just in 2 days, you can finish it. And once you read it, you're going to want to read it again. And if you really have time, read it once every, let's say, 6 months. Every time you read it, you're going to enjoy it more. You're going to discover new parts of it. Okay?
So maybe just to add one thing, that some people might say that how can you read this in 2 days? And I think, you need to remember that, so this is the standard, and every company is using this framework or the previous version of the framework, some shape or form. So things like, the scope baseline, or even these tools and techniques, input, outputs. I mean, that's something which coming, back for almost every company which you are working for. Also managing stakeholder register. So that's why I would say that, you're not going to hear most things first time, let's put it this way. So that's why, getting it done in 2 days is not unrealistic, even though some people might say that.
Yeah.
How can you do this in 2 days?
Exactly. So they started drafting this book in 2023. They had a group of 12 subject matter experts. By the way, if you want to know who are these 12 subject matter experts, you can go back to the podcast we had at the end of last year and early this year. We had 9 of them joining our podcast. And they really went deep into the PMBOK, the different sections of the PMBOK. Why did they put this performance domain? Why did they remove the other performance domain? Why did they change the naming from integration to governance? Why did they integrate communication in stakeholders? Why quality into governance, etc., etc.? Why did they remove the procurement? So it was a very, very interesting discussions on sustainability, on AI, on PMO, on the different performance domains, etc. So it's really worth watching those. The subject matter experts, they're project management practitioners, project management experts from different countries. Okay, and here in the PMBOK, they start with a summary of the changes, what has changed, etc. I think, and let me be honest, because I've been following with PMI for at least almost 20 years now. I can tell you now, this is one of the biggest changes. And I think the biggest change that everyone was aware of is the definition of the project itself. Okay, which is no more a temporary endeavor undertaken to create or produce unique product, service, or result, but now it's a temporary initiative in a unique context undertake to create value. Okay, so that's the biggest change, fundamental change. Okay, and then of course the change included the number of processes, the namings, etc. So that's what it talks about.
And maybe just to add, so that's why PMBOK 7 felt a little bit off track if you followed PMBOK 6 and the process practice guide, because in one hand, PMBOK 6 process practice guide was very pragmatic, very black and white in terms of definitions, and then you got like, from now here's PMBOK 7 with this value proposition idea, and it always felt like that there was a little conflict between them, where this type of mindset and principles were not fully in line with the definition. Now this is actually being cleared. It is now fully in line, and I think that's where I think the way we need to see this is that, so to reach PMBOK 8, we definitely did PMBOK 7. That was, always this, like, say, a bit of an evolution in this case. So each step was really worth it to move the profession to that direction where they all see it all together.
Exactly. And here, for example, in PMBOK 7, as Gabor said, there were 12 principles.
Yeah.
I personally think that the reason behind having 12 principles in PMBOK 7 was because PMBOK 7 was so much influenced by Agile. And in the Agile manifesto, we know that there are 12 principles, so they wanted to keep almost the same number. But now in PMBOK 8, we have six principles. No more 12 is six. And as I said, the authors of the book, they have explained in one of the podcasts before with me and with my colleague Daniel Himoser why they went down from 12 to 6. Okay. And also in the eighth edition, Appendix 5, okay, it explains the evolution of the PMBOK guide. It's really worth reading, guys. I recommend you do it. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
the change of going from process groups to focus areas is they kept the same naming, initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. But now we don't call them process groups anymore, but rather focus areas. Okay. And then the performance domains also, as I said. Now we talk about seven performance domains instead of 10 knowledge areas. We're talking about 40 non-prescriptive processes instead
Mm.
of 49. And tailoring has gained more and more importance in this edition itself.
Mm.
Okay?
And maybe one thing to add on the number of processes, that I think I always had this comment that why we have so many processes, why we have too many tools and techniques, or even ITTOs, are it doesn't make sense. But I think the way you need to look into this, like even with the 40, is that so this is the best practice of project management, which means it needs to fit for purpose for any kind of project, any kind of industry. So therefore, when you have multiple processes with many different tools, it's simply PMI wanted to give you ideas how to bring or keep the project on track, how to make things happen, how to deliver the value, but they never said that you're always using all of them at all the time. And I think that's something which some people tend to forget. Yeah, maybe just I don't.
Yeah, yeah, great, great. Continue, please, Gabriel. It's great, please. It's open discussion. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why so that's also kind of realized, because I do remember when I was also studying on that PMBOK 6 and the later process practice guide, is that you have a process which has 5 outputs but 15 tools and techniques, and I think through my students I learned that many of them have the interpretation that you go tool by tool by tool by tool, and only after that you get to the output. But the reality was that you just do one tool and technique, or maybe two, because just to verify that you're going to get the same output afterwards. And that's something which people, I would say, tend to forget. And I think this session, the reason why, I mean, you all who's live at the moment, which is like 90 people, I check it on my mobile, is that most cases, many students, they're not lack of knowledge, they just they're lacking behind on the understanding and then the clarity, that do not approach all this, let's say I need to know every single bits and piece, every single appendix by heart. Is more about, let's say, you have to understand the thinking process as a flow from beginning to an end, how
Exactly.
this flow will go. Yeah.
Exactly. Have the full picture. Perfectly said, Gabriel. Really, exactly. Now, let me tell this to everyone. Look, I myself have decided that going forward with this version 8, I am not going to teach the course just to prepare people for the PMP exam. To be honest, that's not fair anymore. What do I mean by that? In the past 15 years of my career, I've always had two separate courses. Actually three separate courses. One called Project Management Fundamentals, where people get the foundations and fundamentals of project management. Another course called Project Management in Practice. Sometimes I call it Advanced Project Management, but it's more in practice. And then the third one called PMP Exam Preparation. Now, because we are living in an era, in a time where people don't have much time anymore, I already started with version 7, combining my project management fundamentals, project management in practice courses with the exam preparation one, so people could, have the practice side and the exam preparation side. Now, I want to even enhance this further. And with version 8, I want to tell everyone here who are watching us or who will be watching this recording, please, I want you to bear in mind that the most successful people now in project management are those who literally understand what project management is. How does it function? How does it work? What's the full picture of project management? How does the project and project management relate to company strategy, relate to business case, relate to production, relate to pre-project work and post-project work? How does it relate to the entire system for value delivery? How is it connected with programs and portfolios? How is it impacted by the PMO that we have in the organization? Now, I don't want personally going further to teach that, just to help people prepare for the exam and tell them, you know what, guys, in the exam, these are the kind of questions you will have about PMO. These are the kind of questions you're going to have about value. These are the kind of questions you're going to have about business environment. No, guys, I personally, and I think probably Gabriel, you might agree with me, I want people to learn how to succeed as project management practitioners, because once you do that, you will, your life will be much easier and you will be able to succeed in any type of project. And this is why, guys, reading the PMBOK can enrich, your knowledge, can enlighten you. Okay, so before thinking, oh my God, this is 400 pages, too heavy, too many things are repeating, too much complex language. Actually, it's not. Maybe the first time, yes, when you're gonna read it, in case you're not, let's say, if in case you're doing this like freshly, like you're not used to this project management language from PMI. But once you read that for the second time and third time, many things will make sense, and you will start getting the full picture. Before I move, I let Gabriel give comment on this. When I read the first PMBOK I read was PMBOK 3. I think it was the PMBOK 3 or 2, maybe 3. Okay. The first time I read it, 2007, it was really complex for me. Even the language was very complex, not because of the English language, but many things were so complicated for me. All right. But then, you know what? I took a step back. I read again, then I take a step back, then read again. And every time I read the PMBOK, I try to imagine what PMI is trying to tell us and teach us. And I try to apply that on my projects. And then slowly, I managed to really understand almost every single word in the PMBOK and almost know them by heart. Not because I teach that, but because I practice that. What do you think, Gabriel?
Maybe just like last time. I agree with you partially.
That's
As I would say that, because so in my experience, and even if I go with my own example, which is 2 times failing PMP, and it took me, let's say, really long time to prepare and pass the PMP. And what I learned along the way, that many people also in the same shoes as I am, which is these people spend 4 to 6 months in the exam prep. They're studying on and off, not really knowing what to focusing on. And then the next question, how are we going to apply it in real life and how we can actually interpret it. Whereas many companies are influenced by the PMO, where either they are knowledgeable or they are certified or not certified, trying to create a process which fit for purpose, where in many cases the delivery or the project managers are the ones which are suffering. So making a long story short, I think in one hand, I'm a big fan to get your PMP within 8 weeks, which is, I would say, a medium-sized commitment. It's not like, say, 4 weeks or less, which those are not really believing, be honest with you. But also, trying to consider that is not, an extended period of 4 to 6 months, whereas many people interpreting, let's say, a long period of time as like university degree, which is not really the case. And I think, Ahmed, to your point, so in one hand, to help people to realize that everything they learn through the best practice, they can actually using it, all of it. You can use it in real life and make a difference, and delivering the value to the company, or you can help the company to strive, and your immediate kind of circle, make sure that the project is successful. I kind of agree with that. But also at the same time, I think I really want to make sure that people have at least, let's say, a roadmap or a guidance of how to get it done with a reasonable amount of time. Because unfortunately, I see many these on and off studies, people attending a program or a course January, and up until June, they're not even, looking it back again to get it done. Yeah. So it's always slightly the chicken and an egg kind of discussion of how to do it and what to do it right, or what will be, let's say, the perceived value of that. Yes. So But I think Ahmed, you have more experience than I am in this case, so I definitely look up look up into you and your achievements on this field. But I know the way how we're moving. So the next step with this evolution in project management will be, let's say, the more practical approach, the type of approach which will, really can add that value. And I do believe, the standards and looking into the standards, because these standards, let's say, no longer a little bit, too far away from anyone who's reading it. The vocabulary which we learn from project management, most people already know. You're coming in with the right level of experience. So it is coming on the right time. I think it is coming on the right time.
Yeah. Thank you. So this first part now, the PMBOK 8, this is for the standard. So this table of contents is for the standard. Okay, so this is some preface here. We will see it. Then there is an introduction where it's basic terms and foundations, key terms and concepts, and key foundational elements of project management, like characteristics of a project, how to connect organizational governance and project governance, a difference between operational work and project management work, and then also the relationship between portfolio, program, project, and operations. And then the second chapter is about the system for value delivery, about how to create the value, the project environment, the enterprise environmental factors, organizational process assets, policies, processes and procedures, the organizational knowledge repositories, organizational structure, then some considerations for product management. And by the way, PMBOK 8 focuses a little bit more than usual on products. Okay. Then the different functions associated with projects, like providing oversight, managing feedback, facilitation, performing the work, applying expertise, providing organizational direction and insight and resources. Then different project management roles. Now, this is something also more in focus in PMBOK 8 about the project management team. Now, it's more in focus than before. Almost 5 slides or 5 pages about the project management team. Then definition of sponsor, customer, product owner, project team. The difference between project management team and project team is that, I'll tell you this. Now, in PMI's mindset, and this is something now, it's even a little bit more with the new version. PMI tells the project managers this: if you cannot do it alone, it's fine. You can have a project management team. Maybe you work on projects that are a little larger, a little bigger. Then you can have people helping you with parts of the project, managing the projects. Maybe some people helping you with risk management, with stakeholder management, with managing communications, with reporting, with handling parts of the plans, etc. So this Gaber now in the new PMP exam, we will see that starting July 9, a few questions, as we said last time, will mention the entire team instead of just a project manager. Okay. There is more in focus in the new exam now. Not many questions, but a few of them, okay? Because project management is not necessarily to be done by one person. It could be done by multiple people now, going forward, Gaber.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree on that. And this is just more like an acknowledgement that, the PM is not necessarily the smartest guy on the crew or the role. What is the role of the PM? So many times, the PM is the glue to make sure that, we can create a team who can work together and can deliver. Obviously, the PM owns the overall responsibility to all this, but having that specifically emphasized is going to be is great, because that's exactly what you always needed there. And for the PMP exam perspective, I think everybody need to pay attention to the roles. Because even though, these are the official roles, PMI will not propagate any other role, even though at companies you can have many different variations from, delivery manager to business development, strategic oversight, special initiative, lead to anything and everything. So, but again, you always need to make sure that for the PMP, you make sure you know those kind of official roles. But again, I think you started to see this, how this is all in line with the vision, and how does this, these processes are just building up on that, including the roles, including the policies, including the procedures, because we need them. We need those, and that's what is giving, let's say, the beauty of project management. Because I think, Ahmed, to your point, for the earlier point that, you would like to embrace and work with people to make sure they're implementing all this, which is great. But, I think if you meet a project manager and you're having a quick discussion and the guy will say, oh, all this common sense to me. Now that's the project manager you really would like to meet. Getting something planned, getting something communicated, trying to looking ahead, trying to kind of force it the next 4, 5, next 20 steps ahead, how a project will unfold. That's the type of mindset which you would like to embrace as a project manager. And as soon as I hear this from someone, I know project management is making common sense to me, and here are the reasons why. I go like, yeah, man. I mean, this is for you. This is for you.
Yeah. Then the third chapter is about the principles. We said that no more 12 principles, rather 6. PMI now has got this new thing in the PMBOK explaining the mindset, the project management mindset, based on 3 dimensions. We will see that in a moment. Then, the 6 principles: adopting holistic view, focusing on value, embedding quality into processes and deliverables, being an accountable leader, integrating sustainability within all project areas. I love this so much. And building an empowered culture. And then for each principle, PMI explains how is that applied on the project, examples of how of this principle in action, and how is it connected to performance domains. Okay, and then of course the traditional part of the standard, which is the life cycle. Okay, always PMI in the standard part explains the life cycle. Okay, so the project phases, the development approaches, whether it's predictive, adaptive, or hybrid. Of course, the explanation is a nutshell, not so detailed, because the details are in the guide part, because as I said, the PMBOK has got 2 parts. And remember, preparing for the PMP exam or trying to understand project management, which is better saying this than just preparing for the PMP exam, is not just based on the PMBOK guide. You need at least to take into consideration the agile guide as well. At least that's the bare minimum. Then some considerations for the development approach selection, like which approach to select and what, and based on what. The deliverables consideration, project consideration, organization consideration, then different delivery cadences, and then the focus areas. PMI explains in the standard part what's initiating focus area, what's the planning focus area, what's executing, what's monitoring, controlling, and what's the closing focus area. Okay, so these are the sections of the standard part, Gaber. Not so long, not so big, just all in all 77 or almost 80, a little more than I think than 80. But yes, it's the smaller part of the guide, okay, of the PMBOK, sorry. And then after that, there is the guide, and this is the larger part, okay. So first there is the introduction about explaining the structure of the guide, how it relates to the standard, and what changed the guide compared to the previous versions. Okay, and then the 7 performance domains, and here is the most important part everyone needs to know. The 7 performance domains in the guide: governance, scope, schedule, finance, stakeholders, resources, and risk. And then for each performance domain, there are subsections. Okay. And then also it's very important to understand that for each performance domain, there are processes. And here you can see processes, key concepts, it repeats, okay, tailoring considerations, interactions with other domains, and checking the results. So these, they repeat for every performance domain, and for each performance domain, there is a list of processes. Some performance domains have got 4 processes, some have got 9. And for each process in each performance domain, for each process, there is a table, famous table. I can show you an example of that famous table. For example,
maybe just to add one thing there, that key concepts, something you need to understand, the processes you have to digest, and the tailoring considerations will be the it depends.
Repeat that, please.
So key concepts will be the ones which you need to understand,
Yeah.
The processes you need to digest,
Yeah.
and then the tailoring consideration will be the it depends.
Yeah, exactly. It depends.
It
Exactly.
depends.
This
And that's
this
why I
is
keep repeating in all areas. Yeah.
yeah. This is the table, everyone. This is the table that you will see in every single process, in every single performance domain. For example, this is the finance performance domain. And you can see it's got, for example, finance here. We go to where is it? Finance. Here it is. 2.4 finance performance domain. Okay, so introduction, key concepts, of course, key concepts or key terms, and then here's the this is what we call the performance domain overview or the performance domain processes overview. For example, the finance as a performance domain has got 4 processes, 3 in planning, okay, and 1 in monitoring and controlling. And then those 4 processes, each one of them will have its own table. Now, the table includes the inputs, the tools and techniques, and the outputs. So for the 4 processes, the 4 tables are going to be listed. Okay, these are for the planning, and then will come the one for the monitoring controlling. Now, please, the people who have been in project management for at least 5 to 10 years, they might be wondering, should we memorize all the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs? Now let me tell you this: there is no memorization. Almost, let me be honest. Almost no memorization when preparing for the PMP exam. You don't have to memorize; you have to understand. Yes, I know that many people who are new to project management will not remember where is the project charter an input or an output. Well, it could be both. It could be an output of the developed charter process in the governance, in the initiating focus area, but then it will be an input to certain other processes of other performance domains in the planning phase. For example, like now is an input, but you don't really there will be no questions in the PMP exam asking you, is this an input or output? Even the drag and drop questions, even the new type of questions, which we will start seeing in details starting next week. Okay, like when I took the exam in 2012, yes, we had questions about these documents. Okay, is this document an input or an output? Or for this process, which of the following documents is an input? Yes, I had that in 2012, 14 years ago, when I took my PMP exam. But now, no more. All the questions are situational. Okay, it's really about you understanding how to manage the projects. So this is just an example. For example, estimating costs. Look at the list. It's so big. It's a huge for inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Yes, you need to understand the tools and techniques. You need to understand what each tool and technique does. For example, what's analogous estimating, what's parametric estimating, bottom up, multi-point. This is a new one. Oh no, actually, it's not a new one. It's the same one we had before, but just renamed differently, etc. Inputs, different documents like the project management plan. Which parts of the project management plan is the quality management plan, the scope baseline, project documents, etc., etc. Outputs, then what we will have as an output of this process. Okay. Yes, it's good to know this. It's good to imagine it. Okay, but again, no memorizing, Gaber. There will be no memorizing, except the only exception is page 114, which we already talked about. For page 114, yes, this one you need to memorize it until you practice it. But you need to memorize it. But for each process, memorizing ITTOs, no. But understanding the difference between the different inputs, different tools and techniques, different outputs, yes. How to use them, yes. But memorizing them for each process, no. Okay?
No, I also very much agree. And I think the key terms are the ones which will give you the vocabulary, which is required to speak the PMI language of project management. And in terms of those tools and techniques and outputs, I think where you need anyone put the attention is those unique outputs or that unique tool and technique which is not happening anywhere else, for example. And that's where I would say PMI can definitely put a little pressing on if they really would like to, or make your life very, very difficult. I'll give you a good example. So Ahmed just showed on the screen, for example, the financial strategy or the project funding. I think that was an output, if I'm not mistaken. So if PMI would like to really make your life difficult to the question, they're going to go and press and say, okay, when did you create, and how does this can kind of solve a problem which we had in monitoring, controlling later on. So that's how I would say you need to look into this. But my interpretation, and the way how I also like to say it to the students, that some of the IT tools you're going to learn by heart anyway, because they are just so unique, so attached to a specific time when we're doing them, where, for example, it's mandatory to have them. For example, when we had also the cost estimations, cost estimations happening only, once in the entire process. So you're going to learn them anyway, but it's more about the understanding the flow than anything else, because those, the many tools and techniques, simply PMI wanted to give you options to look into or estimating the project, whatever stage you are. And maybe the final point on that, when we had the analogous parametric estimating and a bottom-up estimating on the same, on the same kind of table. Well, seriously, if you are in planning, are you really going to do analogous parametric, or are you going to simply jump into the bottom-up estimate, which will give you this plus minus, 5% accuracy or even more accurate than that? Obviously, it's going to be yes, because as soon as you create an estimate through analogous and show you to your sponsor or your manager, like, I created the estimate, the guy will say, great, how accurate this is. And you say, it's a like for like. You know what the guy will say. Can you make it super precise? So you're going to jump to do it in a bottom-up estimating, manner anyway. But what I'm trying to demonstrate with all this is that it's more about thinking it through, understanding from the logical perspective, what logic they build behind. And that's what many people refer as the PMI mindset. But here there is going, now on, we're going to have a clear explanation of what the mindset is, how a project manager should think on a day-to-day basis about the project outside of the surrounding environment, and the strategy on the big picture as well. But so as there is a mindset, which I call it the PMI logic, which is you have to understand it, and that will help you to not just succeeding with a PMP, but also you can implement it in real life.
Yeah, exactly. Then there is a big chapter about tailoring. Not so big, but actually it's an important one, because tailoring let me say this. Tailoring has saved us a lot in project management, because now we don't take anymore these ready-made templates or ready-made shapes of project management, ready-made approaches, and we try to apply them all the same on different projects. Now with tailoring, we can pick the right processes, the right approach, customize them according to the project needs, tailor them. You need to know what tools, what templates, what techniques to use, etc. And then there is a big part about inputs and outputs explained. Now all of these inputs and outputs in all of those tables, of those 40 tables of the 40 processes, they are explained here, all of them one by one. And the same for the tools and techniques, the same. These two are the biggest part. Now, let me tell this to everyone. Yes, you will see a lot of inputs and outputs and a lot of tools and techniques. And by the way, they are not the same exactly as the PMBOK 6, for example, because project management has evolved. It's almost 10 years since PMBOK 6 was released. So some tools and techniques still exist. Some of them redefined or improved or enhanced, but also some of them have been removed because we probably don't use them much in project management, and some others added. Okay, so it's fine to redefine, to rename, to remove, to add. It's totally fine, okay, because project management is evolving. So these are the two very, very important chapters: inputs and outputs, chapter 4, tools and techniques, chapter 5, and the guide. And then there are, I think, 5 appendixes. Yes, 5 appendices.
Maybe if you stop there for a second, there is the artificial intelligence, technically 10 pages, just for everybody's understanding. So it's not like a 200-page book just around artificial intelligence, because I got very comments that there are lots of comments. People will say, oh, this new example embracing, how we should use AI. And, from a standards perspective, there is, I would say, a little guidance, which is also on the screen. But if you're looking into it, from page 237 to 245, which is, again, it's not even 10 pages, So we just need to be clear on that.
Exactly, exactly. And then there are five appendices. Okay, appendix one about the contributors and reviewers, but then appendix two is important about PMO value proposition, importance of the customer centricity for PMO, and we have a full free course about that on YouTube. You can watch it if you want, guys. PMO types, model structures, maturity models, etc. Then, as Gaber said, Appendix 3 is about artificial intelligence and is not so deep. By the way, let me clarify this because many people are thirsty for this chapter. Yes, in my PMP training, it's chapter number 11. Artificial intelligence is chapter number 11 exactly. I'm going to teach that next week with the calendar group. Okay. It's now in the chapter what we have use cases of AI in project management, when the project manager can how to use AI by the project manager, where the AI can help, few models suggested, a few practice cases, few prompting, some prompting, and some theoretical knowledge about large language models. About some a little bit, we go a little bit deep in AI, but that just in my course. We don't. Other trainers maybe don't want to do that, or maybe don't need to do that. But what's common? What's going to be common between all the project management trainers and experts in this part for AI for the PMP training is use cases, some basic tools, prompting. Yeah, this is mostly what most trainers will focus on. Because remember, guys, PMI wants AI to be support, to be you use it to achieve quicker results, maybe more instant results, more instant data, but not use it to replace you. PMI never says that you should let AI do your job and you only focus, for example, on meetings and discussions and calming a stakeholder and motivating a team member. No, that's not where we want AI to go, and that's not how we want AI to be used. Now we use AI to automate some work, to do some administrative work that takes a lot of time from us, etc., but not to replace us or do our work. Because in the entire PMP exam, in the new edition, the number of questions about AI varies between 2 to 4, almost in this range, almost 2 to 4. Okay, and again, it's about using it, how to use it, use cases, but never in any question replacing the project manager or taking our work, or you outsource the entire risk management part or change management part to AI. That can never happen, Gabor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I fully
Okay.
agree, and I think anyone has any doubt, just go and check what PMI CEO Mr. Pierre Leman is also posting on LinkedIn on a frequent basis, because he also have to reiterate the message that the reason why PMI is going into or invest so much effort into AI, because the next big investment in the world is all around AI, and then the project managers have to be aware of that, where those investments are, where those strategies are lying, and how does this impacting the big picture from sustainability or anything. Let's put it this way. So is I would say it's almost similar like when Agile was introduced, where everybody was actually been see it as an information which we all need to grasp and understand. And I think this is exactly the same. So we need to be all educated about AI on the extent, because the next big investments on the world are all around AI in this case, instead of any traditional models. So yeah,
Exactly,
which is
exactly.
fantastic.
Then procurement now is in a separate appendix. It's no more a performance domain or knowledge area. Okay, so almost the same procurement we've been having for the past 20 years. Almost, I say almost, a couple of new practices, emerging trends. Okay. Yeah, but almost the same we've been having for the past 20 years, because anyway, procurement didn't evolve that much yet. And then the Appendix 5, we talked about earlier about the evolution of the PMBOK guide. It could, help you have some idea, right? So then, the list of figures, etc. I would probably jump now, Gaber, to the standard part. Now we're gonna just have a brief overview on the standard part. Here is introduction, purpose of the standard. Okay, why is it here? To align the project. To provide basis of understanding project management,
Yeah.
and how it facilitates the intended outcomes. It says that the standard applies to projects across all industries, including business, government, non-profit sectors, geographic regions, organizational size, development approaches. Okay. And then some key terms, what's artifacts, what's benefit, what's outcome, output, portfolio, product, program, project management, PMO, project management team, project manager, project success, project team, value, and value delivery system. By the way, these words here, which have been mentioned, these key terms and concepts, they are really the key. You will almost see them in every single question in the PMP exam. Almost every single question
Yeah.
must mention one of them: benefit, outcome, portfolio, product, program, project manager, project management office, value, system for value delivery, etc. They will be mentioned almost in every single question. Not all of them, but at least one of them will be mentioned. Okay. Then foundational elements of the project. Here, of course, I mentioned earlier the redefinition of the project. The project definition has been changed. Okay. Exactly. Where is it? The temporary initiative in a unique context undertaken to create value. I think it's been mentioned. Oh, here. Yeah, sorry, project. Project. A temporary initiative in a unique context undertaken to create value. Okay. This is now, guys, the new definition of a project. But you don't need to know only about project management. You also need to know a little bit about PMO, program management, portfolio management, a little bit on basic level, just to be sure that you really understand the difference between them and intersection between all
Yeah.
of them.
Maybe one point here is that, so what is not really covered, or we didn't even see the bullet point of it, is, or the section is about Agile and about Scrum, which is still showing the case that it's still going to be part of the exam. It's still going to be, let's say, a credible source beside, side by side with the PMBOK 8, which is, I think, just a good heads up with everyone, because many people might be wondering around that, okay, what about Agile, what about Scrum, how are you going to get the information out of it, or information of it? And then, yeah, that should come from the Agile practice guide in this sense.
Yeah, exactly. Not only practice guide, but at least provides good insights on Agile. Then difference between operations and projects. Operations which repeat, projects which are temporary and unique. Then relationship to portfolios, programs, projects, and operations. Of course, it's always good to join a full training to have those explained with examples, with practice cases. But here, one of the most important figures in the entire PMBOK is this framework for, let's say I would call the system for value delivery, okay? So this is the system for value delivery, where we have, for example, the organizational strategy, which is transformed into portfolio or portfolios. Inside a portfolio, there will be multiple programs, maybe other portfolios, sub-programs, and then will be projects. And usually projects would deliver products or would feed into the product life cycle, almost, okay? So projects could give products, results, also services, but again, they could multiple projects could be also part of an entire product life cycle. This is possible. Then this entire system for value delivery is part of the organization's internal environment and where operations run. Now, it's very important to understand the difference between operations, projects, and all of that is surrounded by an external environment, which is covered by the business environment as well, and other components. So this figure, guys, is so important. And then many parts of the guide feed into this entire figure. So for example, everything we will learn in the guide, almost everything, is just feeding into one small box here, which is the project. It could be any project, okay? but there are other parts in this entire PMBOK which cover this entire picture. And in the PMP exam, there is a number of questions, will be 10 to 15 questions covering this entire system, sometimes touching on PMO, sometimes on external factors, regulations, compliance, the internal environment, portfolio level, linkage with organizational strategy. All of that is going to be manifested in a number of questions, sometimes 10, up to 15, less, more, etc. So you really need to have the full picture, guys. Don't be stuck only in this small box of the project. Yes, you are going to be certified, as project management professionals. Yes, but it doesn't say project professionals. It says project management. Yes, we're on a project level, but now the term project management is more general, by the way. Yes, it could refer to projects only, but project management has always been more general. And the proof is the institute, which gives all of this knowledge, all of these standards and books, all of these certifications, whether it's a PFMP certification, PGMP, PMOCP, etc., is called Project Management Institute. So yes,
Mhm.
because all of this is part of the bigger and larger discipline of project management. The organization is called PMI, Project Management Institute. So it's not enough for you to learn only about the project processes, focus areas, but it's so good and important to have the full picture, Gaber.
Yeah, and I think this is just in line the new vision of PMI, that you no longer just a responsible person to the delivering one thing. You need to also understand the big picture and how does this all fit into the value delivery, both internal, both external, and that goes also with that sustainability part. But this is, I would say, really helping people to understand that the wider perspective what project management can offer. And that's why I like to say that whoever joins this career path, this is not just a side a side project for 5 years that you're going to be a project manager. You can do this technically for 30, 40 years of your life. Even going into PMO, I spent 15 years there. Simply is possible because there's so much to learn, because every project will teach you something new. But I would say that now is more evident, more in line with that vision what PMI created. So I'm very happy to see this. Ahmed, to be honest with you, I really like this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. And then some basic definitions.
Mhm.
Difference of different elements. Sorry, the difference between the different elements in portfolios, in programs, and projects. As I said, because it's really important for you guys to know this. Then comes the second very important part, which is the system for value delivery. All right,
Yeah.
so this entire system, and here in this system, we talk a lot about what's value, what's benefit, what's this benefit, what's tangible value, what's intangible value. All right. The system for value delivery is very similar to what we saw earlier, but it just goes a little bit deeper, or no, higher view actually. How the vision, become it translates into mission, the mission into strategy and objectives, and that is going to be manifested in portfolios, in programs, in projects, and also in
Yeah.
operations and product life cycles. Okay, it's similar to the one we saw earlier, just a little zoom out, one small zoom out. Okay, because
Yeah.
projects and programs are grouped in this part here. This is what you're gonna focus on. You see the one in blue, that part in blue. That's where that's what. Let me put you in concrete percentage. That's almost 85% on average, because it depends from student to another. Almost,
Mhm.
that's what 85% of the questions the PMP exam will cover. The authorized projects, and yeah,
Mhm.
mostly the projects. The other 15% will cover, more about the other elements. Not, I don't mean the business environment, because even when we talk about the business environment, is from the project perspective rather than from a company perspective. Okay, always
Yeah.
consider that. Okay. And then, how the resources are going to be utilized, whether for the authorized projects or for the authorized operations and product life cycles. Okay.
Mhm.
Then, a few other details, like, how to assess the project success. And again, this whole chain of vision from senior leadership to portfolios to programs and projects, then to operations and back. How the information flows, the project environment and the influences in this figure, and then I move forward now a little quicker. The types of organizations also explained, the product life cycle and intersect. Now this is new actually. The product
Yeah.
life cycle, how it intersects with the projects, programs, and the portfolio, because we know the product life cycle runs for years and years.
Yeah.
Portfolios also run for years. A portfolio can have a number of programs, and in each program a number of projects. So again, this is part of the entire picture that the project manager needs to understand, Gaber. This is so important.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now let me quickly go. Now here part of the project management roles, as we mentioned in the appendix. Okay, the sphere of influence of the project management team. The influence fades, or it is stronger with the sponsor, then little less with the program and portfolio manager, then less and less with the others. But that's the entire sphere of influence.
Mm.
Is the triangle. This is the traditional triangle of talent we know from
Mm.
PMI, with the ways of working, business acumen, power skills, but now more social responsibilities surrounding it. And this is for the project management team competencies. It's no more the project manager competencies. It's more of the
Okay.
project management team, as I mentioned, because the focus is more on the team now than on just one single person. Uh, Now we're done with that part for system for value delivery. And now come the part, still the standard for the project management principles, the mindset based on the three
Yeah.
dimensions, being proactive, having ownership, and value driven. And then here, if you see my screen, Gaber,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
all of those six principles, adopting holistic view, embedding quality into process and deliverables. These two now are under the dimension, the proactive dimension, being accountable leader, being building empowered culture. Thus, under the dimension of ownership and focusing on value together with integrating sustainability within all the product areas. This is under the value-driven dimension, and all of those three dimensions, six principles, they explain the mindset which now PMI adopts and explains for the first time in a PMBOK. Gaber, if you
No, I fully agree with you. And last week you went into a very good level of details of this mindset, and you are absolutely right. So previously we made assumptions based on assumptions where one scenario was true, then B and C was also, for example. But here's crystal clear, and I think on the proactivity, ownership, and this value driven. This is all down into that type of leadership which every project manager should demonstrate through proactivity, through ownership, through that value delivery. And I think to putting, let's say, the project team into a middle of all this, and seeing the PM as an orchestrator of how to moving from A to B. I think that's a great example, and now the standards are also in line that how it's been expected, how project managers expected to act in an environment.
Yeah, exactly. So moving forward, each principle is
Will you
explained
explain?
here, okay, one by one. So we already touched on this in the previous session, so I'm not cover that. Here also about sustainability and the sustainability pyramid. So I'm moving forward. The sustainability broadens the orientation of project
Mhm.
management. I personally have already explained that in my full 35-hour training to the students who attended that. And then we're done with the standard. No, sorry. The last part of the standard is the project life cycles. Okay, the project phases, the impact of variables over time, the development approaches, when to pick predictive, when to pick adaptive, when to pick hybrid. Okay, and for adaptive, difference between also different approaches like iterative approach, incremental approach, full agile approach. Then different views on life cycles of the predictive, simple predictive as usual,
Yeah.
with delivery at the end, or predictive with multiple incremental delivery. And this is what PMI is trying to, let's say PMI is trying to redefine the predictive, because we usually know predictive as rigid approach, full plan at the beginning, no changes in the middle almost, except following a thorough change management process through the CCB, change control board, and then delivery at the end. But now we can have also predictive life cycle with incremental delivery, because it makes sense.
This looks to me like a rolling wave planning, if you ask me. This is similar to rolling wave planning on the extent. Yeah, I would say let's wait and see, because even with the hybrid, I think that's still one of the grayest area with the explanation of how, because theoretically you can blend and make work almost anything and everything, but on the know-how level of the how does this fit from a tools and techniques perspective, that's not a black and white explanation. But with this one, it's clear to be acknowledged that predictive should also evolve, and this is one evolution. I think, in my opinion, utilizing the rolling wave planning principles, and then also the value focus in this case.
Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciate that a lot from from PMI in general, because that will really revive the waterfall. Because with the PMBOK 7, it was waterfall approach was shown as an old bad monster. We should get rid of it, and everyone was talking agile. But now realities of the world, realities of the economies in the world, we know that agility is really best mixed with the traditional approach to have more of a modern approach, because agility per se is applicable only on a small fraction of projects, not the larger ones.
No, you're absolutely right. Through my experience, I would say 5 out of 10 PMs believe the rolling wave planning, that's an agile concept, which isn't. But that's also showing that there is still lots of things to learn in the predictive side or the waterfall side of things. It's just a matter of perspective of how to deliver the same on a more efficient or more value-focused perspective.
Exactly. Then here also an example of adaptive life cycle, where we have iterations, delivery, feedback, then iteration, delivery, feedback, improvement, changes, etc. Comparison between the different, let's say, methods and approaches, whether it's a method for small projects or approaches for larger projects. Scrum remains always one of the easiest methods to apply, compared, for example, to SAFe or Scrum of Scrums or less.
And I think just everybody's understanding Scrum will remain as a scope for the PMP exam. So that's something which is not dropped. Yes. It's still there. It's going to be remaining there.
Actually, it's going to be a little bit more enhanced now. Let me tell people a little bit of let's say some. I give people some scoop. So in the new version, Scrum sometimes will be mentioned as a separate part of the project. So you're managing a waterfall project, but with a Scrum part in it. So you can have a project manager and a Scrum master at the same time in the project, because the project manager is managing the entire project, but there is a Scrum master managing that Scrum part or that Scrum component in a hybrid project. Okay, that's one way how to ask questions in the new PMP exam. Another way is the traditional the way we have right now in the version 7 of the current 2021 exam, which is in a agile project, and the project manager is doing this and that. So here, usually the project manager in an agile project is usually referring to the servant leader, who is usually the Scrum master. Okay, that's also the second way how to ask the questions, which is very similar to the current exam based on ECO 2021. So these are the two ones. And there is another one, which is putting or asking particularly about Scrum as a Scrum project from the beginning to the end. Mm-hmm. That's a little rare, but it can happen. You can have a question just about the Scrum project and the role of the Scrum master or the role of the product owner. It's not so often, but it could happen. You could see it. But now most of the questions in the new ECO exam will be mostly about either the typical way we have in the current version, which is agile project and the project manager is doing this and that. So mostly it's this, you answer in the mindset of the Scrum Master, or the new way, which is a waterfall project. But there is a project manager managing that project, but also there is a part of that project being managed with Scrum, and there is a Scrum Master with that. So it's usually the project manager who's deciding on the entire project, and the Scrum Master just managing that small Scrum part. So you could have both roles in one project, but played by different people, not the same person. So you can have that. We will show you examples of those questions, or we will show you mock questions on those of those scenarios when we reach I don't know, session 7 or 8, when we will talk about agile. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
These are examples: hybrid, starting adaptive, finishing predictive, or having both running in parallel with other. I mean, at least in my training, I teach at least 5 types of hybrid project management. Here are other types: predictive with adaptive component, or the other way around, adaptive with predictive component. Okay, so these are 4 types here. And here are now the focus areas: the initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. And then PMI explains. And here is one of the most important slides in the standard, which is the project boundaries. Here, the project in the middle, starting with the initiating, having planning, having executing, having closing. All of that is surrounded by the monitoring, controlling. These are the project. This is the project, but the project has got boundaries, like pre-project, post-project, pre-project with business case, etc. Post-project with operational work, handing the deliverables over to maintenance or operations or other functions, etc. A very, very important slide. Then the remaining focus areas, a few figures explaining the how we call the intersections between the different focus areas. Okay. Then here is an index with few words, index of the different terminologies of the standard, and then the most important part, which is the guide. And the guide has got 3 main parts: the part with the performance domains, the part with the tools and techniques, and the part with the inputs and outputs.
Yep.
Okay, so here are the 7 performance domains, which are governance, scope, schedule, finance, stakeholders, resources, and risk, and how they also the intersection with the mindset, with the principles, and the 3 dimensions of the mindset: proactive, ownership, and value-driven.
What's
Changes.
interesting to see that how this will change the CAPM exam, because otherwise there's no announcement on the CAPM front, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously this is a great way of, I would say, embracing project management for any person who's starting in this field completely fresh, because this is really showing that it's not all about that kind of processes or this outer layer, but also the middle layer to make sure it's also fully understood.
Yes. Exactly. CAPM was changed recently, I think a couple of years ago, but we definitely expect that there will be an interim change to the exam, because the exam doesn't have to be the same for 5 years. I think it will be impacted by this PMBOK as well. Okay, so changes to the PMBOK, and then we go now to one of the most important parts of the guide, which is the performance domains, the 7 ones. The table, page 114, the so important table, guys. Please memorize this table. You need to memorize it. You need to be able to reproduce it by heart on a paper. And then we start with governance. And I'm going to take governance just as an example. And you can apply this, you can then read the other performance domains the same way. Then preface on governance. What is governance? What is it about? Value creation in governance, for example. Few governance models, of course, those specific to governance, key concepts, and then we jump to the processes. Okay, and these now the same for all the other performance domains. Now we have processes, and then this summary table, you will see it, guys, in every performance domain. Okay. The only performance domain with processes in every focus area is governance. So there is a process in initiating, there is a couple of them in planning, few of them in executing, 2 of them in monitoring, controlling, and 1 in closing. So in total, we have 9 processes So 3, 3, 6, and 3, 9. So 9 processes for the governance performance domain is the only one with processes in every focus area: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. The other performance domains, at most, they have processes in either 2 or 4. Okay, like stakeholders in 4 focus areas, scope, risk, finance only in 2 focus areas. The same for risk. No, risk is a little more. And then, as I mentioned earlier, for every process, you will have this table, which we call the
Yeah.
inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs table. So this will repeat for all the 40 processes, all of them. Okay, so 9 for governance, etc. And then it's really good to go in details in all of those guys. So because we have only 15 minutes left, so I'm going to go quick now. So these are all the 40 processes with their
Maybe we
tables.
should see if there are any question in the chat. I'm not sure.
No,
Anyone
no, no,
is
no. So far, no questions. I was checking a few minutes ago. Just people saying hi, as I told you, because people will probably watch this recorded. So yeah, so this is the risk one, and then tailoring. Then once we are done with the 40 processes, the 7 performance domains, we have tailoring. The tailoring part. Okay, why to tailor is to there is no single approach because there is no single approach that can be applied to all projects of all the time. So that's why we tailor. So here PMI again explains tailoring. What is tailoring about? How to do tailoring. This is just an example of tailoring. Okay, assessing the different organizational project factors when tailoring. Again, guys, if you join any full 35-hour training from any one of us, you will have all of this explained. So the tailoring explained in details. And then we go now to the 2 biggest parts as well, or two of the biggest parts, inputs and outputs. And here is an explanation, and sometimes with some examples or figures. What's accepted deliverables? What's activity attribute? What backlog means? What's business case means? What change log means, etc., etc. So all of these are definitions, but in the training you will not see those inputs and outputs as definitions. In the full PMP training, you will see those these inputs and outputs linked to particular processes when explained, or a particular performance domains. For example, in my course, I have structured it in a way that we live the full story of the project. So I start with the business case, then I move, to talk about how to initiate a project, then what to do in project initiation, then in the planning, then in the execution, and then I tackle the performance domains one by one, the governance, the finance, the scope, the schedule, to help people really have the full picture as if we are talking about a story of a project. And all of those inputs and outputs, I inject them. Every time I inject one by one in the different either focus areas, which we can call also phases, or the performance domains. Okay, I think you do the same, Gabriel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely right with this one. Yeah.
Exactly. So all of and we don't put even when we talk about the inputs and outputs, we don't really put them as words. Usually we show the templates. What's the lesson learned register? We have a template, or requirement recipe matrix, or etc. So
I think the way how I see it is that so many people have to be kind of self-educate themselves with a certain specific vocabulary and a certain specific meaning of certain keywords, which they might use differently at real life. So I would say that's why all these are going to be very, very important to make sure that they understand this.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm finishing with this part for inputs and outputs, and I'm moving to the next. And by the way, guys, you have I think it's a summary table, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's a summary table in the end.
No, maybe in the actually in the tools and techniques. So the tools and techniques, again, mentioning different tools here in the PMBOK, the few figures, as I said, some tools and techniques to be used, to solve some situations, or to get some results, or to assess certain conditions. Okay, so it's like different tools, techniques, models, etc. And I think at the bottom of this section there is the summary table of each tool and technique and when to use it in each process or focus area. So I go down, 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 and let me just arrive to that. Yeah, it's a long list. It's really long list. That's why I said it's some of the biggest parts. Oh, I don't know where I saw the table, but I don't have it here anyway. By the way, some people wonder: are we going to learn all of those hundreds of tools and techniques, inputs and outputs, etc.? Actually, not all of them. Some of them are put in the PMBOK for you in case you would ever need it. What we have in our training of the 35 hours are the ones that you will see the PMP exam. Not every tool and technique you will see the PMP exam. Let's say now, if I can compare with the previous version, is almost 50%. 50% or a little bit more of the tools and techniques mentioned in the guide you will have in the PMP exam. Not all of them. No, absolutely not. PMI lists those just as a support for you in case you will need them in your particular industry or project. Then we have Appendix 2 about the PMO, Appendix 3 about artificial intelligence, okay? Appendix 4 about, if I'm not mistaken, procurement, yes, exactly, and Appendix 5, the history of the PMBOK, okay?
Yeah.
So this is how you guys can read PMBOK guide, okay? The PMBOK, exactly. So I think this slide is one of the most important ones for those who know the history. How the PMBOK guide 7th edition and the process groups from the practice guide, which replaced PMBOK 6 in 2023, I think, how they both have been merged or taken into consideration when building the 8th edition. So it's really worth knowing this. It's really worth seeing it. And yeah, that's it. I think almost that's it. Exactly. And then just at the bottom here, you have the glossary of terms. Okay, for every term that is mentioned in the PMBOK guide is actually defined here, guys. So
yeah, this can be the good subject for our flashcard series. But again, I think for everyone on the call, you can use flashcards in the beginning just to get more familiar with some of the keywords or phrases which you're not familiar with. But yeah, they are not too useful in the end, but in the beginning is useful.
Exactly. So we wanted to have this session with you guys for almost 1.5 hours, or 1.5 hours, just to help.
Which is a lot.
We only wanted to share with you guys how you can read actually the PMBOK for those who are really curious how to read it. So this is actually they don't have that table like in PMBOK 7 Gaber here in PMBOK 8. I thought also it exists here. I thought I saw it, but it's not here. Okay. So I think this is it. I think this is it. There is no. I don't know if there are any questions. I don't see any questions, to be honest.
No, I don't see questions.
Yeah, no. Just one question from Dennis. He said, as someone with PM background, the most useful. Yeah. No questions. All right, everyone. I think that would be it. That would be all for this session. Gabriel, you want to add anything?
No, I think the way you went through this PMBOK 8, and I really hope that this was giving a good overview for those who actually been just maybe just got the book or considering to get the PMP after July 9th. You guys can see that PMI is moving into a position where PMBOK 8 is going to be the main body for the exam, but you also need the supplementary items like the Agile Practice Guide and more in-depth understanding of Scrum. But PMBOK 8 is now on a path that is not just can be used for the exam, but also can be used in real life and can be implemented there, I would say. So I think that's a good thing. That's absolutely amazing thing to see.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We hope that you like this session. If you have watched it, please hit like or leave a comment. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Gabriel, my dear colleague, and see you next week, guys, with a more detailed session. Have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.